This thought about campfires is not a neutral thought. I have no neutral thoughts. This thought about, fill in the blank, is not a neutral thought, because I have no neutral thoughts. I have no neutral thoughts. Well, hello. Thank you all so much for joining me out here on this cold January the 16th of 2024 day. It's a Tuesday on Ready for Lesson 16 in A Course in Miracles workbook for students. And I'm miracle teacher from the Ozark, miracle teacher, forgiveness teacher. I think of myself as a miracle teacher, but a forgiveness teacher, really, because that's what brings miracles into reach, is learning to practice forgiveness towards everybody, everything, until you see just beauty, until you see reality. Well, thank you again for joining me. Let's take a look at this. I have no neutral thoughts. The idea for today is a beginning step in dispelling the belief that your thoughts have no effect. Everything you see is the result of your thoughts. Everything you see is a result of your thoughts. There is no exception to this fact. Thoughts are not big or little, powerful or weak. They are merely true or false. Those that are true create their own likeness. Those that are false make theirs. They're using the word create. Those that are true create their own likeness. Those that are false make theirs. There is no more self-contradictory concept than that of idle thoughts. What gives rise to the perception of the whole world can hardly be called idle. Every thought you have contributes to truth or to illusion. Either it extends the truth or it multiplies illusions. You can indeed multiply nothing, but you will not extend it by doing so. Besides your recognizing that thoughts are never idle, salvation requires that you also recognize that every thought you have brings either peace or war, love or fear. Either one, either love or fear. A neutral result is impossible because a neutral thought is impossible. There is such a temptation to dismiss fear thoughts as unimportant, trivial, and not worth bothering about, that it is essential you recognize them all as equally destructive, but equally unreal. We will practice this idea in many forms before you really understand it. Now let's take a pause there, and we'll come back and we'll read that again and we'll finish. But our lesson goes so good with our text reading for today. Let's just go ahead and read in chapter 2, Fear and Conflict, and it's section number Roman numeral 6. Being afraid seems to be involuntary, something beyond your own control. Yet I have said already that only constructive acts should be involuntary. My control can take over everything that does not matter, while my guidance can direct everything that does, if you so choose. Fear cannot be controlled by me, but it can be controlled, but it can be self-controlled. So Jesus can't control your fear thoughts. He says, fear cannot be controlled by me, but it can be self-controlled. Fear prevents me from giving you my control. The presence of fear shows that you have raised body thoughts to the level of the mind. This removes them from my control and makes you feel personally responsible for them. This is an obvious confusion of levels. I do not foster level confusion, but you must choose to correct it. You would not excuse insane behavior on your part by saying you could not help it. You would not excuse insane behavior on your part by saying you could not help it. Why should you condone insane thinking? There is a confusion here that you would do well to look at clearly. You may believe that you are responsible for what you do, but not for what you think. The truth is that you are responsible for what you think, because it is only at this level that you can exercise choice. What you do comes from what you think. You cannot separate yourself from the truth by giving autonomy to behavior. This is controlled by me automatically as soon as you place what you think under my guidance. Whenever you are afraid, it is a sure sign that you have allowed your mind to miscreate and have not allowed me to guide it. It is pointless to believe that controlling the outcome of misthought can result in healing. When you are fearful, you have chosen wrongly. That is why you feel responsible for it. You must change your mind, not your behavior. And this is a matter of willingness. You know, it's at the willing level, the mind level, the thought level, the choice level that we can make changes. You do not need guidance except at the mind level. Correction belongs only at the level where change is possible. Change does not mean anything at the symptom level where it cannot work. The correction of fear is your responsibility. When you ask for release from fear, you are implying that it is not. You should ask instead for help in the conditions that have brought the fear about. These conditions always entail a willingness to be separate. At that level, you can help it. You are much too tolerant of mind wandering and are passively condoning your mind's miscreations. The particular result does not matter, but the fundamental error does. The correction is always the same. Before you choose to do anything, ask me if your choice is in accord with mine. If you are sure that it is, there will be no fear. Paragraph 5. Fear is always a sign of strain, arising whenever what you want conflicts with what you do. This situation arises in two ways. First, you can choose to do conflicting things either simultaneously or successively. This produces conflicted behavior, which is intolerable to you because the part of the mind that wants to do something else is outraged. Second, you can behave as you think you should, but without entirely wanting to do so. This produces consistent behavior, but entails great strain. In both cases, the mind and the behavior are out of accord, resulting in a situation in which you are doing what you do not wholly want to do. This arouses a sense of coercion that usually produces rage, and projection is likely to follow. You know, blame somebody else instead of realizing that you're the decision maker, you're the one that gets to interpret every choice you make. And you might as well give it true meaning. Listen to the Holy Spirit's way of seeing things. Practice forgiveness. Whenever there is fear, it is because you have not made up your mind. Your mind is therefore split, and your behavior inevitably becomes erratic. Correcting at the behavioral level can shift the error from the first to the second type, but will not obliterate the fear. Put a little more wood on this fire. Keep my hands warm enough so I'll be able to play my song at the end. And thank you for joining me out here by my little campfire. Paragraph 6. It is possible to reach a state in which you bring your mind under my guidance without conscious effort. But this implies a willingness that you have not developed as yet. The Holy Spirit cannot ask more than you are willing to do. The strength to do comes from your undivided decision. There is no strain in doing God's will as soon as you recognize that it is also your own. The lesson here is quite simple, but particularly apt to be overlooked. I will therefore repeat it, urging you to listen. That's nice. Open your mind, only your mind can produce fear. So he says that this could be overlooked, and I will therefore repeat it, urging you to listen. Only your mind can produce fear. It does so whenever it is conflicted in what it wants, producing inevitable strain because wanting and doing are discordant. This can be corrected only by accepting a unified goal. The first corrective step in undoing the error is to know first that the conflict is an expression of fear. Say to yourself that you must somehow have chosen not to love, or the fear could not have arisen. Then the whole process of correction becomes nothing more than a series of pragmatic steps in the larger process of accepting the atonement as the remedy. These steps may be summarized in this way. Know first that this is fear. So first you have to be aware that you're having a fear thought. And that's why we want to, do our meditations, our practice periods, as he calls them. At this point, about, 3 to 5 times a day is what he's suggesting. Know first that this is fear. Then tell yourself, fear arises from lack of love. Then tell yourself, the only remedy for lack of love is perfect love. Perfect love is the atonement. And what we learn the atonement is, it's the interlocking chain of forgiveness, which when complete is the atonement. So let's look at it again. Know first that this is fear. You have to realize you have a fear thought first. Sometimes that can be the most challenging part of the whole thing. That's why we want to take our time to be still and quiet and introspective often, and look at what's going on what's our emotional inner climate saying to us. Know first that this is fear. Fear arises from lack of love. The only remedy for lack of love is perfect love. Perfect love is the atonement. Perfect love is the interlocking chain of forgiveness, the at-one-ment, the atonement. Paragraph 8, I have emphasized that the miracle or the expression of atonement is always a sign of respect from the worthy to the worthy. The recognition of this worth is reestablished by the atonement. It is obvious then that when you are afraid, you have placed yourself in a position where you need atonement. You have done something loveless, having chosen without love. This is precisely the situation for which the atonement was offered. The need for the remedy inspired its establishment. As long as you recognize only the need for the remedy, you will remain fearful. However, as soon as you accept the remedy, you've abolished the fear. This is how true healing occurs. Wow, he's given us a wonderful, wonderful procedure there. Know first this is fear. Fear arises from lack of love. The only remedy for lack of love is perfect love. Perfect love is the atonement, or the at-one-ment, or the interlocking chain of forgiveness. Okay, in the last paragraph for this section, 9, everyone experiences fear, yet it would take very little right thinking to realize why fear occurs. Few appreciate the real power of the mind, and no one remains fully aware of it all the time. However, if you hope to spare yourself from fear, there are some things you must realize, and realize fully. The mind is very powerful and never loses its creative force. It never sleeps. Every instant it is creating. It is hard to recognize that thought and belief combine into a power surge that can literally move mountains. Of course, he's referring to what he said in Matthew chapter 17, verse 20 and 21, when he said, if you have the faith of just a little bit of faith, you could say to this mountain, be removed, and it'd be moved. It appears at first glance that to believe such power about yourself is arrogant, but that is not the real reason you do not believe it. You prefer to believe that your thoughts cannot exert real influence because you're actually afraid of them. This may allay awareness of the guilt, but at the cost of perceiving the mind as impotent. And of course, allay means to diminish or put to rest, and impotent is powerless. So let's read it again with those fill-ins. This may diminish or put the mind at rest. This may allay awareness of the guilt, but at the cost of perceiving the mind as powerless or impotent. If you believe that what you think is ineffectual, you may cease to be afraid of it, but you're hardly likely to respect it. There are no idle thoughts. All thinking produces form at some level. And our lesson, boy, doesn't that lead right into it? I have no neutral thoughts. Now let's look at it again. I have no neutral thoughts. The idea for today is a beginning step in dispelling the belief that your thoughts have no effect. Everything you see is the result of your thoughts. There is no exception to this fact. Thoughts are not big or little, powerful or weak. They are merely true or false. Those that are true create their own likeness. Those that are false make theirs. There is no more self-contradictory concept than that of idle thoughts. What gives rise to the perception of the whole world can hardly be called idle. Every thought you have contributes to truth or to illusion. Either it extends the truth or it multiplies illusions. You can indeed multiply nothing, but you will not extend it by doing so. Besides your recognizing that thoughts are never idle, salvation requires that you also recognize that every thought you have either brings peace or war, either love or fear. A neutral result is impossible because a neutral thought is impossible. There is such a temptation to dismiss fear thoughts as unimportant, trivial, and not worth bothering about, that it is essential you recognize them all as equally destructive, but also equally unreal. We will practice this idea in many forms before we really understand it. In applying the idea for today, search your mind for a minute or so with eyes closed and actively seek not to overlook any little thought that may tend to elude the search. And he has the word little there in quotes because, but like he said, they all have an effect. There are really no little ones. There's either true ones or false ones. And we want the true ones, reality, God thoughts. This is quite difficult until you get used to it. So he says, in applying the idea for today, search your mind for a minute or so with eyes closed and actively seek not to overlook any little thoughts that may tend to elude the search. This is quite difficult until you get used to it. You will find that it is still hard for you not to make artificial distinctions. Every thought that occurs to you, regardless of the qualities that you assign to it, is a suitable subject for applying today's idea. In the practice periods, first repeat the idea to yourself, and then as each one crosses your mind, hold it in awareness while you tell yourself, this thought about blank is not a neutral thought, and that thought about blank is not a neutral thought. As usual, use today's idea whenever you are aware of a particular thought that arouses uneasiness. The following form is suggested for this purpose. This thought about blank is not a neutral thought because I have no neutral thoughts. 4 or 5 practice periods are recommended unless you find them relatively effortless. If strain is experienced, 3 will be enough. The length of the exercise period should also be reduced if there is discomfort. So if you find some discomfort going on, well, you can even do it for less than a minute. But otherwise, if you're enjoying this, he's saying you can do it up, how does he say it? 4 or 5 practice periods are recommended if you find them relatively effortless. If strain is experienced, 3 will be enough. And even that you can do less than a minute if the strain is so strong. Okay, now, I know we kind of, boy, it's already took us 20 minutes just to read it. Okay, let's take a quick look at what's going on around the world, though. before we close with our song and a little short meditation. And on holidays and observances, appreciate a Dragon Day, Book Publishers Day, Civil Service Day, International Hot and Spicy Food Day, and I looked up the Scoville scale units for capsicum, and bell pepper is a 0, and no heat. And it goes up. Banana pepper is a 2,000, poblano is 4,000, jalapeno is 6,000, cayenne is 35,000, habanero 350,000, ghost pepper 700,000, and Carolina Reaper 2 million Scovilles. So there's quite a difference in the concentration of capsicum. National Fig Newton Day. I used to eat a lot of Fig Newtons with my grandpa when I was a kid. National Good Teen Day. National Nothing Day. National Quinoa Day. And you know quinoa is a complete protein, and it's 53 on the glycemic index, which is about medium. But it has all your essential amino acids, which is rare in a lot of grains. So it's unique in that respect. International and National Without a Scalpel Day, and the first angioplasty was performed on this day in 1964 by Dr. Charles Dotter. Prohibition Remembrance Day, it was enacted today, or it started in 1920 and lasted for 13 years. Psychiatric Technicians Day, and we're starting to get through the prohibition of cannabis in many states now. Psychiatric Technicians Day, Religious Freedom Day, and that commemorates Thomas Jefferson's landmark Virginia statute for religious freedom of this day in 1786. And rid the world of fad diets and gimmicks days. It sounds like a gimmick itself. Okay, Printing Ink Day, the last one. And did you know you can make your own printing ink? I found this on jacksonsart.com. And he said, throw almost any pigment-rich base ingredient in a pot with vinegar and salt, boil for an hour or two, add a couple drops of gum arabic, and voila, you have ink. Things that you can use would be red peppers, beets, Osage orange chips, walnuts, walnut hulls or leaves, either one, blueberries. Anyway, I thought that was some interesting stuff on how to make your own ink. And then I also wanted to tell you about two more, another pomegranate. And this is the favorite Lyabimi pomegranate. Lyabimi, which translates from Russian to favorite in English, is another hardy Russian pomegranate variety, a promising selection even in protected areas of Zone 6. Medium-sized tree, space 8 to 10 foot circles, self-fertile, Zone 7 through 9. And it is a Pumica granatum. And then I also wanted to tell you about a little bit more in the permaculture book, thanks to Carrie Mitchell. And it's the cabbage white butterfly. The Pyrus rapae is the genus and species of those little white butterflies that they're beautiful, but they lay those caterpillars on your cabbage plants, all your brassicas, and well, they can just eat up the leaves and the cabbages in just a matter of short order. So you want to try to keep them in control. A few of them's not a real problem, but you don't want many of them. Young cabbage plants can be particularly vulnerable to this butterfly's caterpillars. Natural predators include small birds and parasitic wasps. Okay, well, let's close with our song and our little meditation. And that was a little longer reading today. And let's make sure I've got... Okay, let's see if I'm going to get my hands warm enough to where I can play. Thank you all so much for joining me today. And we're going to sing that what to do in case you have fear thoughts. If you experience fear thoughts, I have no neutral thoughts. I have no neutral thoughts. This thought about, and fill in the blank, is not a neutral thought, because I have no neutral thoughts. And if you experience fear, tell yourself, no, first, this is fear. Fear arises from lack of love. The only remedy for lack of love is perfect love. Perfect love is the atonement. Perfect love is the at-one-ment. Perfect love is the interlocking chain of forgiveness. Oh, no, first this is love. Fear arises from lack of love. The only remedy for lack of love is perfect love. Perfect love is the atonement. Perfect love is the interlocking chain of forgiveness. Oh, perfect love is the at-one-ment. I have no neutral thoughts. This thought about, you fill in the blank, is not a neutral thought. That thought about blank is not a neutral thought. That thought about is not a neutral thought, because I have no neutral thoughts. I have no neutral thoughts. I have no neutral thoughts. So until tomorrow, practice that a few times. Try for 5 times today, and then use it if you notice during the day a thought that comes up that is particularly disturbing. Say, I have no neutral, that thought about blank is not a neutral thought because I have no neutral thoughts. And let it go. And our word for peace in Chinese is Heping. I have no neutral thoughts. Heping.